No, I mean, this executive order doesn't really address the root of the problem. I mean, he passed 60 executive orders when he first came into office that completely dismantled our border, and that is what really created this crisis that we're seeing across America, and particularly in New York City, that we didn't see under any other Republican or Democrat president in our nation's history. And so this is really, it is something, but it's certainly not what we need. We passed a measure in the House, as you know, over a year ago. The Senate won't take up our bill, and even ones that we passed on a bipartisan basis, the Senate won't take up any of those bills for some reason, at least allow for a vote to take place. What I would say is this is certainly political. It is certainly the president's attempt, because he sees the poll numbers. He sees that this is the top issue on voters' minds right now, because they're seeing things happening like what happened yesterday in New York City, where 2 NYPD officers were shot by someone who was here illegally, and he came under the president's program. And to make matters worse, when you dig more into this individual's case, he went to a Chicago immigration judge, and his case was basically dismissed. It was closed. So he's in the country, no status. He's here now illegally, right? He's committing crimes. He was a suspect in a string of robberies across New York City, and then he shoots 2 of our police officers. So as long as we're going to continue to allow individuals who are criminals to enter our country, which he's going to do because there's no real method of vetting them. You need to completely secure our borders, and the section that he's referring to in this executive order, which is Section 212F of the Immigration Naturalization Act, in that it gives him the authority to shut down the border completely. Not to mention, he can undo the 60 executive orders that he put in place that created this crisis. So this is, unfortunately, window dressing, but we're going to continue to fight to ensure that, you know, we actually get our border secure. Whether that means we have to elect a new president, that's fine, or whether we got to win the Senate back, but we have to get it done.
Okay.
And one last thing, I just want to say to the American people, when you get a poll, when somebody calls you to take a poll, make sure you continue to tell them that the border is the #1 issue, because clearly it's having an impact, and that is exactly what today is about, just responding to those polls.
Well, Congresswoman, the president today in his remarks noted that while he is willing in this case to take executive action, that the kind of securing of the border you speak of can only really be accomplished with congressional action. And I know you just alluded to their H.R. 2, the House-passed bill, yet that passed with not a single Democratic vote. It was not bipartisan. Is it time to start from scratch and actually work on a new bipartisan solution?
Again, the president took 60 executive actions that destroyed our border.
But I'm asking what you and your colleagues can do.
No, I understand, but for the president to say that is a lie, because he's the one who took 60 executive actions to undo the border, and he can undo it today if he wants to. He can fix it today if he wants to via executive order, the same way he broke it. Now, with our legislation, we did have another bipartisan bill that had tied the foreign aid that was passed, and then unfortunately, leadership decided to just do the foreign aid without the border security provisions. I had a real problem with that, which is why I didn't support the entire foreign aid package, just bits of it. But what I'll say is, the other thing is, we have other bills that we passed that at least would address the issues of people who are here committing crimes. Those passed with bipartisan support. Why can't we get Chuck Schumer to at least take those up if that's what we can agree on at the moment? And the other thing is, in New York City, why is this still a problem? Because New York City won't cooperate with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They passed a bill in the City Council under Bill de Blasio that kicked ICE out of Rikers Island, that prohibited NYPD from cooperating with ICE to deport individuals. So what you have right now in New York City is a situation where people are being arrested for crimes and they're being released back onto the street instead of being turned over for deportation. So you don't have cooperation to get the existing individuals who are here committing crimes out of the country. So I think it's a real combination of things. I'm happy to work in a bipartisan manner. I've showed that as a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus, and we did come up with a solution that addressed our support for our allies who are in war right now, coupled with real border security measures. Some of the provisions that were in H.R. 2, we had Democratic sponsors of that bill. But unfortunately, again, leadership did not decide to go with that on both sides, the Senate and the House, unfortunately, and we are where we are.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, Congresswoman, while you're with us here, and based on your view from the Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. You spent some time asking tough questions of Anthony Fauci yesterday, getting into some of his professional actions during the COVID pandemic. I'd love for our viewers and listeners to get a sense of that, and we'll ask you about that. Here's how this went with Dr. Fauci yesterday.
Dr. Fauci, did you delete any emails or records related to the Wuhan lab or the origins of the virus?
No, I did not.
Okay. Dr. Morins said in a May 2021 email, he indicated that he was connecting people to you in a, quote, secret back channel. Do you know what he was referring to?
I don't have any idea what he's talking about. There is no back channel at NIAID.
Congresswoman, I wonder what the end game is here with more than one crisis burning. We just spent 5 minutes talking about one at the border. Will this hearing lead to legislation? Is there a bill that you're working on that will come from relitigating COVID?
Well, yeah, I think that, first of all, in order for us to prevent the next pandemic, we need to know the origins of this pandemic. And unfortunately, leadership at NIH and Dr. Fauci have spent so much time suppressing the lab leak theory, number one. Now he's saying it is potentially from the lab leak. That is actually what the FBI and the Department of Energy has indicated as well from their investigations. We passed legislation to declassify all the documents. The president refuses to do it. He refuses to comply with federal law despite it passing unanimously out of the House and the Senate. So we're trying to get to the bottom of where what the origins and the role that NIH may have played or support of taxpayer money. We know that Department of State money, Department of Defense money, USAID, NIH money all made its way to this Wuhan lab via EcoHealth. EcoHealth, we've gotten a result there. They are now debarred. They are prohibited from receiving any more federal grants. That is a result of the work of our subcommittee. And the issue that the clip that you just played was interesting because you have the senior advisor to Dr. Fauci saying that he had the secret back channel, that Dr. Fauci was using his personal Gmail to communicate on NIH business to avoid freedom of information laws. And then you have Dr. Fauci saying that that's not true, that he doesn't even know what his senior advisor is talking about. So someone is lying to the committee, which is perjury. And destruction of government records is an offense as well. It's a criminal offense as well. So we got to get to the bottom of it. The biggest issue with this committee is that the stonewalling, the difficulty in getting this information. But I'm working on a number of pieces of legislation as it relates to royalties that NIH scientists receive. As you know, $710 million in royalties they received, when that money should be going back to the taxpayers if it's a taxpayer that's investing in these experiments.
All right, Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, thank you so much for joining us.